Hello, everyone, and welcome to Writer's Block Party. I am Moshe Chaim Davidovich. I am a hobbyist banjo player, a JV demon wrestler, and most importantly, a writer. So, first, when did I begin writing? How did I get in all of this? So I began writing when I was 10 years old, writing a novel. My goal was 60 pages in Google Docs, so I say novel hesitantly. My goal was writing a novel about a character that I had come up with for Dungeons and Dragons. A half-orc named Krusk, who was half my personality back then, because 100% of my personality was D&D, and half of it was Krusk, I made up all sorts of things about him. He was 7 feet tall and hunted wyverns on his own for fun, blah, blah, blah. This really cool guy. And I was so into him, and I was also kind of a book nerd as well back then. I actually didn't read as much fantasy as I do now, but I did read a decent bit of fantasy, and of course I played D&D, and so I was reading a bunch of books and playing D&D and blah, blah, blah. And eventually it just became that I was thinking so much about this character that I just, spur of the moment one day, went up to my family, messaged an online friend I had on Reddit that I met through r/D&D. I said, I'm writing a book about Krusk. And I got all excited over it, and I made all these plans, and I had originally planned that it was going to be like 5,000 pages long. It was going to be this huge fantasy epic. I was going to publish it somehow. Figured I'd think about that later because I was 10. But of course it was going to be published because I'm me and I'm amazing at everything. So, the original goal was 5,000 pages. That dropped down to 60 in Google Docs, and I didn't even get there. And finishing things throughout all of my writing career has been a big difficulty, at least finishing big things like novels. Currently, I'm working on what will be the very first novel I ever finish, God willing. The next question is, what do I write? This has evolved a lot over the years. When I was first writing that original Krusk novel, I thought I would be a fantasy writer. Then I started reading all sorts of different books. I went through many different periods. Usually what would happen is I would read a lot in a certain genre or subgenre, and then I would make that the sacrament of my being, and I would come up with a lot, like 30 different ideas for stories in that genre or subgenre that would all be crap. And I would know that they're all crap, and I would pick the one that was the least crap and try and write that, and usually it'd still be crap. You know, I forget who said this quote, but I heard a quote, the first draft of anything is crap, and that sounds pretty accurate to me. I remember there are 2 novellas that I've finished so far. One called Thunder Wheels, one called Werewolves of Texas. Both of them were about gangsters, so I figured I was going to write about gangsters for a while. Then I wanted to write sci-fi. Then I wanted to write manga, because I was into manga for a certain period of time. And then I thought, I'm reading a lot of thrillers now. This was more like a year to 2 years ago, where I was thinking, okay, this fits with my writing style, because I had matured more at that point from when I was 10 writing Krusk. And writing thrillers wouldn't be bad for me. I'm still considering writing thrillers as things stand. But really the only reason why I switched from then to where I am now, thinking I'm going to write fantasy, is because I started writing fantasy And the novel that I'm currently working on is a fantasy novel, so it's come full circle to where I started with Krusk. I went through all these phases, and now I'm back at fantasy. But I have plenty of ideas for thrillers, for sci-fi, for westerns. There's not enough westerns these days. There used to be. People don't write them anymore, and that sucks in my opinion. But at least for now, I'm writing a fantasy novel, and I plan to write many more in the future. But while I understand, like, there is a reason that writers write in a certain genre, it's easier to market yourself that way. Sci-fi especially, you can mix with fantasy very well. So I'm not going to limit myself to just one genre. But if I had to say, if somebody came up to me and asked me, what kind of a writer are you? I would say fantasy. Now comes the bigger question. Why do I write? What's the point of me having this channel? We'll get on to that in a little bit. But I won't pretend, like a lot of people do, artists who romanticize their process, that I'm here because I'm so in love with the craft of writing and I just cannot imagine myself doing anything but being a professionally published author with my YouTube channel. This is the only thing that could make me satisfied with life. Now, that's not to say that I don't greatly enjoy writing. I do. And I do want to be professionally published, and this is a big part of what gives purpose to my life. But it's not just that I love writing to bits. Writing isn't my favorite thing that I do. For me, of the hobbies that I mentioned, writing, banjo, and wrestling, from top, most favorite, I love it the most, to bottom, love it a lot, but the least, it goes wrestling, writing, banjo. I would enjoy wrestling professionally more, but first of all, I'm not nearly good enough to wrestle professionally. You heard me say JV Demon. I'm pretty top of the heap for JV, but like JV. And I'm definitely not playing banjo professionally. Even writing professionally, I do understand that that's not just any random bub off the street corner can be, I want to write professionally. I think I'm going to be an author and then make 10 million bucks, bestseller, super rich author, just like that. And I understand that there is a significant chance that I never will have a book published. But my odds are significantly higher than the average person. It may sound arrogant to say, but I am a lot better at writing than just a random person that you pull off the street. And if I do manage to get published, which is still a fairly significant chance, then I stand, first of all, to make not even really a living, to be honest. Writing does not make nearly as much money as people think it does. People think you're instantly a millionaire because you write. That's not really the case. But a really, really solid supplement to my income. I plan to also work as a prosecutor. I know I am going to be up till midnight every night writing and being a prosecutor, but I don't sleep anyways, so I don't really care. So that could take me from making like 100-some thousand to making like 150,000. With you sell a book, get $30,000-ish dollars. That's a pretty good addition to your income. Not that I really care about having money, to be honest, but I plan to have a large family, a large Jewish family, and if you've never met Jewish kids or Jewish women, they come with a price tag. And also, writing has the potential to create a term, I'm going to use a term that I've heard from my stepfather that I like a lot, pro-social weight. Pro-social weight is a very fancy pants way of saying it adds weight, as in value, to society. I haven't looked in to study the science, the brain, blah, 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 of what reading does to people, but such an incredibly vast majority of the smart and thoughtful people that I know read, that if somebody said to me that reading does not make you smarter, does not help you grow your mind at all. It has no benefit. I would really be quite skeptical. I would want to see evidence for that before believing them. And that's really, I know it's a big accomplishment that you can flaunt. I'm a prosecutor. I'm an author. People will hear that and they'll be like, oh my god, dude's amazing. He's doing so well with his life. And that's part of the motivation for it. That is enticing. That I will be able to sit down at dinner when people are eating cheese fondue and make them spit out their cheese fondue when I tell them what I do for a living. But the main reason why I won't really want to do anything, why I want to work at all, is because I want to do something positive that positively affects society with my life. I've really never understood people who want to just relax on an island sipping pina coladas for the rest of their life. Society has this weird dichotomy where it tells people, okay, achieve your dreams, chase your dreams, work hard, young son. But when you talk to people who actually live in that society, if you ask them for advice, they'll tell you, work hard, blah, 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 blah. But then you ask them what they want, and they're like, I just don't want to work. I just want to sit back and relax. My pillow is so soft. I've never understood people like that. I don't relax very much, and I don't really want to. And wrestling is the most relaxing way to not relax that I've found. So, why did I create this channel? For mostly the same reasons why I write. Because there is some sort of pro-social weight I can create with a YouTube channel. It isn't quite as direct of an effect on people's minds as a book that I myself wrote. But in sort of an indirect way, if I educate an author out there, they go and they write a great book. And then people's minds are transformed by that book. Then I had some sort of hand in the transformation of those people's minds. So I can say that I basically multiplied my reach. Instead of just my books, then 50 authors out there, maybe more, I don't know, maybe less, whatever, some number of authors out there, I can basically say that I'm responsible for now thousands and thousands of more minds being transformed. Death resume, essentially, is the term I would use for it. When I die, and God or whoever asks me, you can fill in the blank, asks me, what did you do with your life? I can say, well, if I had not lived, 300,000 or whatever people would not have had their minds transformed, instead of whatever smaller number would have been transformed from just me alone. So I can basically game the system when it comes to having something to show for my life. So that's neat. I also won't pretend that I didn't have in mind that this is going to make my resume absolutely unbreakable. When it comes to getting published as an author myself, when it comes to college applications, when it comes to job applications, when people see on your resume that you've put yourself out there, they like that. And part of me kind of is irked by the idea of putting so much effort into something just because people like to look at it on a piece of paper and be like, oh, he's such a nice person. How people will go and get volunteer hours to pretend that they're a good person. But I can at least tell myself that there is actual benefit that it creates for myself, for other people, and not just so that I look better to the people who might be hiring me. Although there is that as well. So, what can you expect from this channel? You can expect writing tips in the forms of in-depth videos and shorts. You can expect both live reading of stories that you, the listener, any listener, can send in, or live editing of stories that people send in or that I write, or of novels, editing them how I would think would make them better. You can expect critique of writing pretty much all forms of media, television, movies, anything that I think lessons can be extracted from. You can expect to be able to send in your own work and get advice on it. And send in any questions you have at any time. I might not be able to get to all of them. At first, I probably will, because I don't expect this channel to instantly become huge. Just big enough that I could make like $2 a day off of it within my first year. That's my goal, is just little bitty money. In short, you can expect any kind of video, any kind of content that I believe will help you improve as a writer.